was thinking this morning when Sister Connie was leading worship, she kept tying back into Jesus Messiah.
Yes.
And that is the governing factor of our
Yes.
life.
Yes, it is.
When we figure out that everything is due to the fact that He is our true Messiah.
Yes, amen.
Now, don't take this lesson the wrong way. I'm not asking you not to interject. But several weeks ago, somebody in passing in a message said something about listening. I know I had planned on extending last week's Sunday school, and I kept trying to go back to it, and I couldn't get there, and this one kept coming up. So I decided that apparently I was to change directions. How quickly do we listen? Did you know that there's biblical proof that the southern drawl is to be cultivated and highly esteemed? We are, on the average, way quicker to say something than we are to listen to what somebody actually has to say. And how many times do we cause problems because we start to answer before we even know what someone's saying?
That's true.
And one thing, in the word listen, it contains the exact same letters as the word silent.
Oh.
And I thought, so many times we're trying to listen and we just won't be silent and actually let someone speak. In James 1:19, which when you start studying this, everywhere you turn, almost the first thing that they mention is James 1:19. Therefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath.
Yeah.
So many times we flip that around and we put swift where slow is and slow where swift is. We think we know what they're saying and we're already upset before they even get done talking. When if we would listen and see what they're actually saying and try to understand where they're coming from, a lot of times anger wouldn't be as much of an issue.
Yeah.
Listen like every word matters. Or no, actually I said that wrong. Listen like every sentence matters, and speak like every word counts. If we would just slow down and listen to what someone's trying to say, and listen to where their heart's at.
Yeah.
A lot of times if you understood why they're saying what they're saying, even if it isn't going over very well, maybe you would understand why they're saying it, and you could empathize with them a little bit more. I have a bunch of references, and I'm trying not to get into so much of the speaking part of it as the listening part of it. In Proverbs 13:3, I picked up the wrong Bible this morning, and it does not like to cooperate with me. So if someone gets to it before I do, because I had all these, I have too many bookmarks in here that are marking the wrong thing.
I've got this underlined in my Bible, Brother Josh.
Well, if you've got to it, go ahead and read it.
He that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction.
How many times have we seen that?
Yeah, it's true.
Something comes up and we shoot our mouth off and get ourselves into trouble. But if we had just learned to be quiet,
Yeah.
we'd save ourselves a lot of grief. There's an old saying is better off to let people think that you're stupid than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And you know, there is times that we think we have to interject so people realize what we know. And while you're trying to tell them what all you know, all of a sudden you realize you didn't really listen to what they said, and then you're embarrassed. In Ecclesiastes 5:2, I'm just going to paraphrase that one. Don't be so quick with your mouth. In Proverbs 18:13, and I'm going to slow down here in a little bit. Sometimes if I don't get my references out first, I run out of time to, sometimes you need to read before you talk too. 18:13, he that answereth the matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto them. Like I was saying, there's been a lot of times when I went to go and tell somebody something, and all of a sudden I realized I hadn't actually listened to them before I was trying to tell them, and I felt embarrassed the rest of the conversation. And you know, there's a difference between listening and just waiting for your turn to speak. Many people aren't good listeners. They're just good at being quiet for a long time. While someone else is talking, you're just sitting there thinking about what you're going to say when they're done speaking. And you realize that you interrupt, and I have got to remember this on a constant basis. When you're interrupting somebody pointlessly, it is not only rude, but it's disrespectful. And I'm so bad about I'll get a thought in my head and I know I'm going to lose it if I don't hurry up and say it. And I just spit it out, and I think, you know, they had something to say. And I thought what I wanted to say was more important. And we also need to remember in Ecclesiastes 3:7, there is a time to be silent. You don't always have to say something just because it crosses your mind.
Right.
There's a lot of times that you hear people say, well, I just had to, the truth of the matter was I wasn't going to let that stand. There is a time for that. But there's a lot of times, just be silent. They accused Jesus of all kinds of things at his trial, and he answered not a word. There's a lot of times that people are saying something to you or about you that is not true, but you don't have to answer every time. I found several sayings that were, the more you think about them, the more there is to them. The truth of the matter is very seldom have your ears ever gotten you into trouble, but your mouth will on a regular basis. In Proverbs 10:19, and I know I'm probably not giving enough people enough time to get to it. When I was a kid, the last thing I wanted to do was talk. And then I got over that fear, and now sometimes the last thing I want to do is be quiet. But you need to remember, and you see this happen over and over and over, in the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. You let somebody talk long enough, and they're going to say something they really shouldn't have said. As the old saying goes, you give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves with it. You let somebody talk enough, and sooner or later, they're going to say something they really wish they hadn't said. And when you're talking a bunch, just remember, big egos have little ears and a big mouth. A lot of times we're talking because what we think, what we have to say is important. But in Proverbs 17:27, it says, the wise use words with restraint. Think about what you're saying before you say it. Be careful. Think about how somebody can take what you're saying. Make sure that you speak plainly to where they understand you. Because that is the whole idea behind conversation. Isn't the size of the words you use or the eloquent way you put it. It's getting your point across. And a lot of times, a few simple words is a lot better off than just rambling on and on. The hardest thing to do is to speak at the right time. We speak when we should be listening, and then sometimes we shut up when we ought to say something. And remember, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen to everything being said before you start to answer to be sure that you even know what is being said. Not only is it polite, but it shows maturity. A lot of people figure out a lot about your personality by listening to you speak. I know we've all said it about other people. They don't say a whole lot, but when they're talking, you better listen. And that's actually something that we should all strive to be, is make sure you know what you're talking about before you talk. There's the old saying that says, don't go off half-cocked. A lot of people don't understand where that come from, but on a lot of your old guns that were hammer fired, if the hammer was all the way down and hit, the gun could discharge. But you pull the hammer halfway back and there was a catch, and that was your safety. A lot of us need to have a lot better safety on our mouth.
Yeah.
How many times have you been in a conversation and you shot your mouth off and caused you sometimes damage that you can't hardly repair? There's been times that I've said something and it's took years to get the hard feelings to go away. Whether I really meant what I was saying or if I didn't listen well enough to what they were saying. It's hard enough to give a good answer when you know the whole question, yet alone when someone's talking and you start in before they get done. What a lot of people think is discernment is actually just taking the time to think clearly, to think rationally, and calm your emotions before your mouth opens up. Because the problem is when you start saying words, you can't never get them back. You can apologize. There's some people that will accept your apology, and there's some people, once you've said it, it will always be in the back of their mind. I may or may not have enough time, or I may run out early. I'm not sure which. But you know what a lot of people think is discernment is actually just taking the time to think clearly. Wisdom is the reward for a lifetime of listening when you would a lot rather been talking. When you're speaking, you're only repeating what you know. If you'll listen, you might actually learn something new. And I thought, there's a lot to that.
Yeah.
A lot of us want to show off what all we know. But a lot of times, if we were half as smart as we thought we were, we'd be half as smart as we think we are. Listening shows respect. And I already touched on this.
Sometimes, Josh, all a person wants you to do is listen. They don't want input. They don't want your opinion. They just want you to sit and listen so that they can feel better and just get it out there.
I'm going to come back to this in just a second. As a lot of you know, I've been foreman for years and years and years and years. One thing that's highly contagious is complaining. And I hired a couple new guys, younger guys, and I told them, I said, when things go wrong, and they will, you have 30 seconds to complain, and then you're done. Because sometimes you do have to let it out a little bit,
Yeah.
but you don't need to sit there and harp on it.
No.
And there's been a couple times that the one boy, I really like the guy. He's a younger guy. But something would go wrong, and boy, he'd just start in complaining like crazy, and then he'd stop me like 27 seconds. I had 3 left to go. I'll roll that over till next time. But you know, there is times when you go to somebody for advice, encouragement, things that went wrong, and all they do is sit there and listen to you. And by the time you're done, you feel like they have ministered to you. And it's just because they were willing to listen. There were several times right there on the corner of that pew, Brother Bill sat there, and I was telling him this and that and the other thing, and he just, And when he finally get all done, he'd say one sentence. And that was all he needed to say, and it felt like I had talked to him. It felt like he had ministered into my life in a big way, and mostly, he was just listening. But like I was saying, listening shows respect. And my question to myself is, how disrespectful do I come across sometimes? And I know, and I'm just going to say this, I know I've done it repeatedly. The 2 times the 2 people that kept coming to mind, as I know I've done it repeatedly to Brother Dennis and to Brother Jared both, when they were trying to talk to me, and I was busy trying to say what I wanted to say, and I cut them off. And it's something that every once in a while I catch myself, I realize I'm doing it. I do it way too much. And I realize that is something that I need to learn to control my mouth and to actually listen and to show respect. Were you going to say something, Connie?
I was going to say, sometimes I complain to God. Sometimes I catch myself complaining more than I'm praising. And sometimes when I'm complaining, like one night up there, the altar, I was going through all these things that was going on, and you know, with this and this and this, and it's just like he spoke to my spirit and said, I know all that. And he does, but he sits there and he listens anyway, because sometimes we have to unload on somebody, and one thing I know, God's not going to turn me away. He's not going to get upset. He's going to try to correct, and he's going to listen. He's going to love me through it all. And he's the only one that I know that loves me through it all.
Sometimes there's a difference between complaining and unloading your burdens.
Yes, that's right.
You know, Hannah went to the temple, and I'm sure if you listened to her praying, you didn't think she was praising.
No.
She unloaded her burdens,
Yes, she did.
and God listened.
Yes.
And when she'd unloaded all the burdens, He gave her a son.
Yes. She got
There
it.
is a difference
Yes, there
between
is.
complaining.
Yeah.
I do know, though, sometimes that we think we're unloading our burdens and we're just griping about
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
One thing we all need to make sure we do is listen completely. The thing is if you're a good listener, or a good listener will sometimes help you overhear yourself. You'll be sitting there talking to them, and all of a sudden you're like, huh, you answered your own question. You realize, like you're saying, here I am just complaining. And you'll hear yourself doing it. They don't even have to tell you that, hey, you know, one of the greatest gifts a parent can give their child is to learn to listen.
To listen, yes.
And you know, the thing is when that child gets older, they will be better adapted to suit life. They'll do better at their job. They'll do better in a marriage. They will do better in education, which Sister Alice isn't here this morning, I guess. Sister Sherry was a teacher. How many times did you want to tell them kids, just shut up and listen? I'm trying to tell you something. Just listen. And when that child gets older, they will discover that a good listener is loved everywhere they go. And after a while, not only are they loved, they may actually know something. A lot of times we don't learn because we don't listen. And we need to remember that we are to show love in all things.
Yes.
So when you do speak, speak in a way that people love to listen, and listen in a way that people love to talk to you. And I'm not saying, you know, speak in a way for people to love to listen. I'm not saying being eloquent and being the best speaker there ever was. Speak in a way that you're speaking into somebody's life.
Yes. Yeah. Amen.
Trying to see how much I got left so how I know how to moderate my time. To be a good listener, you know, it's fine to just tell everybody they need to listen, but you need to learn how to listen. You need to learn to pay attention and to focus. How many times has someone told you when they're talking to you, would you put your phone down and listen?
Yeah.
My wife's told me that many times. Just put your phone. Well, I already know what you're saying. No, sometimes you don't. And we've been married 28 years. Sometimes I know what she's going to say before she says it. And other times I think I know what she's going to say. And while you're listening, one of the biggest things is don't jump to conclusions and don't make assumptions. A lot of times when we're listening to somebody, we're already jumping to conclusions about why they're saying, what they actually mean, where they're trying to get to, and we make assumptions about how they're actually feeling. Give them the grace to actually finish their sentence, stop and think about it, and then answer. Wait until you actually know what the problem is before you start telling people how to fix it. So many times you're already trying to tell them how to fix their problem and you ain't even heard what all's involved in it. And there will come a time when you do need to interrupt somebody. But when you do it gently and not out of habit. Like me, I do it out of habit. I know I do. Or impatience. Sometimes you can't wait for them to hurry up and finish their story so you can start talking. And here's the next one. A good listener even listens when it's hard to listen to. So many times we are listening until we realize that it is a rebuke or a correction. The instant that you realize that they are correcting you, you are done listening. In Proverbs 12 and 15, as you can tell, the wisest man in the world had a whole lot to say about speech.
Yeah.
The way of the fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. Or or the way of the fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. There's a lot of times that I don't listen because I already know I'm right. So I don't need to listen. And if I actually listened and took wise counsel, I might figure out I wasn't quite as smart as I thought I was. But it is very, very easy. I'm actually going to get done ahead of time. It is very, very easy to underrate someone else's opinion. But you need to realize they may have lived through that already. It isn't always just the elders that have something to say.
I started to say that. We think we're wise. I think I'm wise. A lot of things I am. But I have grandchildren that have studied out things and seen things, and they can remember what's so and what's not. And I've got into a few good conversations with them and realized they know more about a lot of subjects than I do because they're young and they have wisdom and some things that I never had wisdom in. And so age doesn't matter. It does to the effect of we've lived it, but we don't know it all like we would like to think that we do.
So I've logged for a living non-stop since I was 20 years old. So I've been doing it for a little while. And I've tried to learn from everybody that I worked with. Sometimes it was the way to do it. Sometimes it was the way not to do it.
Yeah.
But I've had some people tell me, well, the way we do it is,
Yeah.
and I've done it that way for 50 years. And looking back, it was probably right, but it was also quite rude. I finally told the one guy, I said, well, I don't care if you've done it for 50 years. If you've done it the wrong way, you're still wrong. Sometimes age does not equal
That's right.
wisdom.
That's right.
But on the other hand, if somebody's done something for 50 years, you better listen to them. Because there's a good chance they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, the young man that works with me, he asked me one time, he's like, well, how do you just know this stuff just instantly? I said, because I've done it longer than you've been alive.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
I was going to say, I used to tell my students, because you know, teenagers, a lot of times they think they know everything, and they say, my parents are dumb, they don't know anything. So I tell them, well, after you graduate and you get out of your teens, you come back and tell me how smart your parents are.
I just seen a deal that said to all you children, hurry up, move out, get a job, get a house, and get started on life while you still know everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is some young people
Yes.
that have listened,
Yes.
and they're a lot smarter than you think
Yes.
they are.
A lot better off than we are.
It says, I believe in Timothy, let no one despise your youth.
Yes,
Just because
come on.
you're not
Come on.
98 years old
Come on.
doesn't mean you don't know
That's
anything.
right.
At the same time, be quicker to listen than you are to dismiss somebody.
Yes.
Listening to someone else's life experiences will save you a lot of times from having to live through the same thing. And that's what I told somebody. I said, the thing is it's important to share your testimony, because if you just be quiet, sometimes you're condemning someone to live through the same thing that you've already suffered and carry the scars from. At the same time, we don't live in the past, but you can look back to see where you went wrong and where you got started down the wrong road. You don't glorify it, you don't brag about it, but the definition of ignorance is repeating the same thing that's never worked before, expecting it to change.
Oh.
Hearing is listening to what is said. Listening is hearing what isn't said. And I was really sad to hear this morning that Sister Betty wasn't going to be here. She wasn't feeling well yesterday, and she said she was feeling actually worse this morning. But she has the saying that she says repeatedly, is she hears what they didn't say.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to listen close enough to hear what they're not actually saying.
Yeah.
However, wisdom is understanding what they're not saying, but don't interject what you think they are. And the thing is with true listening, it leads to an understanding. However, you do need to understand that there is a difference between understanding someone and agreeing with them. Just because you understand where they're coming from or why they're saying what they're saying does not mean that you will always agree with it. But you will find a lot of times if you understand where they're coming from, it helps prevent the hurts of jumping to conclusions and thinking they don't have your best interest in mind. And a lot of times, if you'll just take a minute, don't be so quick to answer, you'll find out they'll come to the right decision on their own. We say that we believe in an almighty God. We believe in a Christ that's involved in our life. Sometimes just listen and let him work.
Yes.
And he'll bring it to where he needed it to be in the end. A lot of times I think our problem is we're afraid that when he brings it to the end, it ain't gonna be the end that we wanted. So we try to force our opinions. And I had a little bit more I was going to say, and we are right at a quarter till, and it's a good place to stop. Go ahead.
A few things that I've learned, and I know I'm still young, but a few things that I've learned in listening is, one, something that has kept me from responding when I wanted to. There's a difference in reacting and responding. The Lord is my defender, is what I constantly have to tell myself, because it would be nice to defend myself, but a lot of times it'll make it worse. If you get lucky enough to take some time before responding, go straight to the Bible. 9 times out of 10, it'll tell you exactly how to respond or to not respond. That happened to me yesterday. And then the other thing I was going to say is your life, the way you live, speaks so much louder than any word you can speak.
We've all seen that. We've all seen that. People that are very good about telling you how you need to live your life, but then you see what they do and you think, boy, it'd sure be good if you stopped and looked at what you're saying or lived what you're putting out there. But if I don't stop now, I'm going to get going on another tangent. So, no, it's fine. That's very true, though. We think that we have to stick up for ourselves.
And we don't.
If you live your life the way you are to live your life, and you're in tune with the Holy Spirit the way you should be, you'll know when you need to open your mouth and when you need to be quiet. Jesus wasn't always quiet.
No. One thing, and you said when we don't have to speak up for ourselves. I worked at Taco Bell years ago, and I was never sick. And the boss's girlfriend made the comment one time, honey, you never miss work for sickness. And I said, no, the Lord keeps me healthy. Well, lo and behold, a couple days later, I got so sick that I couldn't go to work. And it just devastated me. And I said, God, how can you do this when I've testified that? And I talked to a lady about it, a wise lady. She said, let me tell you, you don't have to justify God and what he does. He will justify himself. And that has stuck with me all of these years. I don't have to take up for God or justify what he lets me go through or what he doesn't, because he'll do that himself.
That's very true. And you are very right. Is God is our defender.
Yes, he is.
Just because somebody says something about you don't mean it's real,
That's right.
and it doesn't mean you need to answer them.
Nope.
And that is very hard to do.
Yes, it is.
Because we all like to defend ourselves. And how dare you say
Yeah.
that about me?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go ahead and